What is up, everybody? Cody Morgan here for Team New Canoe, coming back at you with another technique video. My favorite way to catch bass with a jig. Alright guys, so back again talking about my favorite way to catch fish with a jig. My absolute favorite bite. Better quality fish. Less bites, sure, but you're always going to catch a good one on a jig. Let's jump right into it. Talk about my favorite stuff, how I set it up, how I fish them, ways that could be more effective for everybody. Different color water, different water temps. This bait is great in cold water, works good when those fish are not, actively feeding, works good during the spawn. Pitch a jig right on top of the bed, there you go. So there's a ton of different ways you can fish a jig, and you're definitely going to get bit with a good quality fish. My favorite setup right now, talk about the rod and reel first. I've got it set up on a Uribe Riverside Series M3. It's my jig rod. It's a heavier rod, 7'3". I got it paired up with a Corrado 7.4 gear. I use 30-pound braid to a 15-pound fluorocarbon leader. That's how I set up for all my jigs. Sometimes I'll go a little bit heavier if I'm in some rough cover or something like that, or if I know the fish are big, like during spawn and I'm going to be setting the hook real hard. I'll go with something a little bit heavier, but typically that's what I do. 15-pound is what I like. The jig, I typically throw two different types of jigs, both dirty jigs, and sometimes with different trailers. Most of the time I will use an X-Zone muscle-backed finesse craw. I just like a smaller, little more compact presentation. But my favorite jig is the Dirty Jigs Canterbury flipping jig. I use 1/2 ounce and up. I like heavier jigs. I think they fish better, especially if I'm going to be throwing in some deeper water. Just a bit more effective, gets down a little faster, and I can pop and drag and everything else. You just get a better feel with a little bit heavier. That's my opinion. The other jig that I'll throw is going to be the Dirty Jigs Tour Level Football Jig. This guy right here. I throw them in all different colors. It just depends on what they're feeding up on. Sometimes I'll throw like a bluegill style. Usually it's something green pumpkin like this. And then the other trailer that I will use is a Yamamoto Flappin' Hog. They seem to love that trailer on these jigs, so works great. Haven't had any issues. Sometimes I'll use a Z-Crawl, just take off the first little bit there, thread it on. Works great. As you see how good this thing stands up when you just pop it a little bit. Get those claws that stand up, they float. So that's what's cool about those X-Zone trailers. They have the floating claws. So definitely worth checking those out. But now the way that I fish them, sometimes they want to drag the jig on the bottom and the fish will just come in and smash it. That's one way to do it. My favorite way to do it is to make a long cast over a rock pile, something like that, and just drag a little bit up, and then I'll give it a pop. Feel a rock down there, and then I'll just shake it on top of the rocks to where it's kind of bumping into the rocks, making a little bit of a commotion down there. They'll come in and then just boom, they smash it. That's typically what I do, is I'll find rock piles and stuff like that, and then just jump the jig around the rock piles, and sure enough, you're bound to get a good bite. That's one of my favorite ways. Other ways that I have done it also is like a double pop, like pop and pull, imitating a crawl, fleeing. I find that the jig is so good in different situations, especially in the cold, when you're not getting them to bite on like a worm or something else. They're definitely not going to get as many reaction bites. The jig is still going to produce a good bite, catch a couple good fish in those cold months. It's probably one of the best presentations out there. It's definitely my favorite way to catch them. That thump when they bite it, you just know. So I know there's other ways to fish jigs. Everybody has their different style. Those are my two favorite ways and a couple of my favorite jigs. Definitely think you should go check this stuff out if you haven't already. But it'll work with any jig really. Just get out there, give it a try, find some offshore rock piles, and dance that jig around those rock piles, and you're bound to get a good bite. So if you haven't already, go out there, fish a jig. Works good in muddy water, clear water, shallow, deep, all different types of situations. That's why I love the jig, and you know you're gonna catch a good fish when you're throwing a jig around out there. So that's it for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and be sure to check out newcanoe.com. Go build your own boat, see what you want to get into, and go from there. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll catch you on the next one.